Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, As-salatu was-salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa ahli baytihi wa man ittaba'a sunnati ajma'in. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. All praises be to Allah, and salutation and peace be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and his followers and his descendants. Today we will do the part 2 of the Surah Ashuara, which is in Quran now is in a 26th position, and it was revealed as the 47th chapter in the Quran. All of the verses of Surah Ashuara, which means plural of poet, so means poets, a poet and a poets, plural. Ashuara in Arabic, that this is at the end of the surah is mentioned, and this is why it is being named after that. All the verses, about 227 are revealed in Mecca, except verse 197 to 224 are revealed in Medina, when Prophet was in Medina. So as I mentioned that last week we talked about what was mentioned about the Prophet Moses and Pharaoh and the children of Israel, and now we will hear about same repetition about the events what happened to between prophets before, such as Ibrahim alayhi salam and Lot and other people of Ad and Samud. The message is same, addressed to Meccan people of tribal Quraysh, and these are the people who claim to be descendant of Ishmael, who was the firstborn of Abraham alayhi salam, and these are the Arabs who have developed into that 12 tribes, and then they developed there. They were the one who were always longing to have a messenger from God when he came, and they denied him. So Prophet Muhammad is addressing to them, and Allah is also reminding them that what happened to the people which was in their knowledge, people of Ad and Samud, which were just in the way when they would ever travel, they will find them, these people, and their ruins of their destruction. And what happened to Ibrahim and Lot, it is not something which these Quraysh or Arabs did not know. And then there's a mention of Prophet Shu'aib, who was sent to the place called Madayan, which is kind of north of Mecca towards southern Syria. And then there was Aika. Aika means people of the bushes. There was an area which was kind of a more of a trees and bushes in there, and these were the people who were also received the message from Shu'aib, the father-in-law of Musa alayhi salam. And these people had a problem. These people used to do a sin of a scale measurement and measurement in the length, and also weighing a scale. This was their crime. And the Quran is giving example of different nations, what kind of crimes they would commit, and Allah how he would punish them. And these people were destroyed by the sound and also by the fire. And then again mentioning of Prophet Lut or Lot, and his nation was committing a sin of not marrying. They would have a homosexual lifestyle and would hurt the other people on the caravan, on the trades. So listen to these things, and it's very interesting to hear all these stories as a reminder. So Quran says, it's a zikr, it's a reminder for those who take heed from it. So let's start. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
And recite before them the narrative of Ibrahim. When he said to his father and to his people, what do you worship? They said, we worship idols and stay devoted to them. He said, do they listen to you when you call them? Or do they bring benefit to you or harm? They said, no, but we have found our fathers doing like this. He said, have you then never considered what you have been worshipping? you and your ancient fathers.
فإنهم عدو لي إلا رب العالمين.
They all are an enemy to me, except the Lord of the worlds,
الذي خلقني فهو يهدي.
who created me and who guides me,
والذي هو يطعمني ويسقي.
and who feeds me and gives me drink.
وإذا مرضت فهو يشفي.
And when I become sick, he heals me.
والذي يميتني ثم يحيي.
And who will make me die, then will give me life.
والذي أطمع أن يغفر لي خطيئتي يوم الدين.
And who, I hope, will forgive my fault on the day of retribution.
رب هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين.
O my Lord, give me wisdom and make me join the righteous.
واجعل لي لسان صدق في الآخرين.
And destine for me a truthful description among the next generations.
واجعلني من ورثة جنة النعيم.
And make me among those who will inherit the garden of bliss.
واغفر لأبي إنه كان من الضالين.
And forgive my father. Indeed, he was one of those who went astray.
ولا تخزني يوم يبعثون.
And do not put me to disgrace on the day when all will be raised to life.
يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون.
The day when neither wealth will be of any use to anyone, nor sons,
إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم.
except to him who will come to Allah with a sound heart.
وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين.
And the paradise will be brought near to the God-fearing.
وبرزت الجحيم للغاوين.
And the hell will be fully uncovered for the perverse.
وقيل.
So this verse number 69 to 91, we heard about a conversation between Prophet Abraham and his guardian, his uncle, because his father's name was Tare, and then this Quran mentioned that this person who was because his father died and he was an orphan raised by his uncle, his name was Azar. Azar was a craftsman, and he would be sculpturing, carving idols, and he would sell them and make his living with that. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he grew up under his care as an uncle, as we understand the Arab in the tribal culture, the uncle is also addressed as the father, but it does not mean biological father. Father in Arabic is walid, and walid means the one who's biological father of a person. So similarly, they call uncle for any tribal uncle, and they could aba means the elder brother of a father or forefathers. So this is how it is in language is addressed. So thing is that when Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was having conversation, this is mentioned here, he said, why do you worship this idol which you carved from your hand? Allah is saying, utlu alayhim naba Ibrahim, to recite them from the narrative of Ibrahim. So this is the conversation which we heard, and he had a very simple question, that why do you worship them? Why do you devote yourself and sit in front of these idols who barely cannot do anything? Basically they are dead structures, and you believe that they are God. You create God with your own hand, you sit in front of them in devotion, and then you ask them for help where they neither have ears to listen nor they have a life to give anybody, and they cannot see and they cannot benefit or harm, but you find yourself being so much devoted that you are ready to die and kill for them. And it was mentioned that when Ibrahim alayhi salam was, when we'll come to story this later on, when he confronted his people, so they actually, he broke all of them except the bigger one, and he put the axe on his shoulder, and they came and they said, well, we have heard this man, young man, who keep talking bad about our gods, he must have been the one who did it. And they tried to ask him, and Ibrahim alayhi salam said, the bigger god has killed the younger one. They said, Ibrahim, this is foolish. You know that they don't talk, they can't see, they cannot do anything. So he said, if they cannot do anything, why do you worship them? This is somehow he did in his time what he thought was. So, but then there's another reason they said, well, we do it because our forefathers have been worshipping them. So he said, well, your forefathers did something wrong, are you still going to continue doing it? And this is one thing very important. Then he changed the conversation from talking to his father to the supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after praising that that the one who created me and guides me. Allah is the one who creates and guides. Allah is not created, Allah is a creator. Allah is not being guided, Allah is the one who guides us. And we don't feed Allah, Allah feeds us. As these idol worshippers, they would put food and drinks. As today we go to India, you will see that they put milk on their false god, and that then drain out in the back of it, and that goes wasted. And a lot of people go, millions of people go hungry, and you do not feed them. And Islam teaches to feed people, the needy and poor and the destitute. Take care of relatives, take care of the person who is in need. So this is a very significant contrast, that you offer food and fruits to the idols, and then offer money, which is being taken by the priest, which Islam says don't give money to anything except when it is of a necessity, and make sure you give it to the right place. And it is, you have a job to seek and find a person who is needy. When you feel satisfied with the person, then you give them your money and your food and your other benefits. And that includes any creature of any faith or any creed. It is irrelevant if that person is believer of God or not. There's a little story about Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he was a man who would never eat alone. He would always go out and find a person and bring him to his home as a guest, and he would eat with this person. So once he went out and asked for that somebody who was in the traveler in the area, and he saw that this person looked like from outside or a stranger, so he invited him to come with and had food with me. So when they sat down to eat food, Ibrahim alayhi salam offered him the bread, and he started eating. He said, stop for a moment. The man says, what? He said, you didn't say Bismillah Rahman Rahim, begin with the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. The man says, who is Allah and what is this beneficent and merciful thing? Ibrahim says, this is my God. This is his way of trying to invite this person to the faith and believe in and thank Allah. So that man says, he says, I don't care for your God, I don't care for the merciful and beneficent. If you want me to do that, here's your food, I'm leaving. When he left the gathering, because Ibrahim alayhi salam was upset with him, so what happened is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Ibrahim. He said, Ibrahim, you threw a man away of one of my creature, one of my creation. He said, Lord, he did not thank you, he did not invoke your name when he was eating. So God said to him, Ibrahim, I have fed him all of his life. He never thanked me, never believed me, never recognized me, but I am a provider, I am the God. So Ibrahim al-Islam realized his mistake. He ran to the bazaar and picked up that man again and invited him. He said, doesn't matter you want to believe it or not, but come and have food. So in Islam teaches charity to be offered and food to be fed to the travelers, as strangers, needy and poor and destitute, and anybody. It is not mentioned the person should be rich or poor. Feeding is one of the main thing. Prophet says, Quran says, it is in the Islamic creed that feed the poor and hungry and destitute. And it is, you may not believe, but the truth is, the biggest charity giver in the world is Muslims, in the entire world, who feed without mentioning, and you would not believe in it. The biggest NGO in the history of mankind was made by a man who was himself was a very poor man. His name was what was his name? I just slip off his. There's one is alive right now. His name is Chipa, the one who just died, and he made the biggest NGO of the world. And he's
Abdul Sattar Sidi.
Yes, thank you very much, Najmaji. His name is Abdul Sattar Idi, and this man used to pick up dead bodies from the one who have nobody to take them, and he would give them a bath and give them coffin and bury them. He would travel to distance to pick up these bodies, and he would take care of children who people abandoned. He had put a little crib all over the country where anybody who does not want to abandon, he would say, don't kill the baby, just if you want to leave put it in that crib, and he would pick them up. When he died, there was 22,000 children named after Idi. He gave them his name because their parents did not want it to keep them. So, and he never took money from a government. So again, there are great people in the history of humanity, but Abdul Sattar Idi have no one a match as him. And he lived very simple life, but he was a millionaire in the sense that people gave him money, but he had never used it. People donated him helicopters to bring the people or the sick people. And in Pakistan government, could you believe it? There is not a single government ambulance ED and Cheaper are the two NGO volunteer ambulance service in the whole entire country of 220 million people. There's not a single government ambulance service, and they provide people the service. So again, just not to be distracted from it. So Ibrahim alayhi salam learned his lesson that we do not ask whether you believe in God or not. If it comes to a needy, and we feed them. As we have heard the story about a woman, she was a prostitute and she was walking by a well in the desert, and a dog was sitting there thirsty with his tongue hanging out. She realized the dog is hungry. She took her boot off and went down into the well because the animal could not go down, brought out water and fed the water, and God forgave her for her sin because she took care of a creature. On the contrary, there's another story about a woman in people of Israel, and she had a cat, and she was a very pious woman, and all the time she would worship, and God threw her in hell because she had a cat and she had tied it down to the rope, would not feed the cat and would not give her the food or the drink, and the cat died. Because of her, the sin of incarcerating an animal, and for no reason, she just tortured this animal. So it is a message for us that Islam has only 5 things: shahada, salah, siyam, zakat, hajj, and the 6th thing is jihad in the path of Allah. Bigger jihad is self, the smaller jihad is battlefield. After this 6 point, 94% of the Islam is dealing, caring, taking, sharing, for offering. And there's a little post I will forward you guys. There's the difference between pleasure and happiness, and it is studied that when you give somebody, you get a happiness, which is a longer lasting serotonin in the brain. When you get a quick dopamine effect, when you get excited and thrilled, that is a pleasure. So pleasure and happiness are 2 different things. Today world is addicted to the pleasure, which is short-lived, but you cannot have pleasure forever, and pleasure lasts for no more than 45 minutes. When you get any exciting news, you're only happy for 45 minutes, which is not happiness, which is a pleasure. We get gratification because dopamine surge in the brain, and after that the dopamine goes down. In human brain have a serotonin, which is a longer lasting and happiness, and it is being studied and found when you give, you get happiness. The Prophet says, if you give from right hand and left hand does not know about it, it's accepted, because it is the way it should be done, that nobody should know about your good deed. But he said you give it with knowledge, announcingly or secretly, both are accepted. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Those who spend in the path of Allah in the daylight and the darkness of the night, secretly or announcingly, they all will be given reward. It has been mentioned the one who gives secret donation or charity, it is 70 times more reward, because you know that nobody knows except you and Allah. So, but what it has been mentioned, the scholarly description is that when you help your family, help it secretly. Why? Because you don't want to humiliate them. So if you take care of your brother or sister, because charity begins from home, anybody in your family and loved ones, when you take care of them, do it so that other family member would not know. So that's going to be secret, and privacy of that individual dignity will not be lost. When you are asked for public donation, like people ask for charity and all that, then give them publicly, and then let them know. When you're being asked publicly, give them publicly. When you ask secretly, help people secretly, and then happiness will come to us with that. So this is one of the things. So then he turned this conversation from mentioning about that when I'm hungry, he feed me, when I'm thirsty, he provide me with the drink, when I'm sick. وَإِذَا مَرِّضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ. This is the dua we should ask all the time. A scholar says that this is the dua which Ibrahim alayhi salam said, and Prophet Abraham, and we should remember, we should say, oh my Lord, when I'm sick, you heal me, provide me with the healing. Nobody can heal me except you. So medication are the sources. They are resources, but the original cause, healing, is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then I hope you will forgive my faults. We should always hope from the mercy of Allah. We should never be hopeless from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Do not ever be hopeless from the mercy of Allah, because that is the biggest of the kufr, because Allah can do what is impossible. He can split the moon, He can turn the sun back at the time, He can raise the dead, He can bring the dead to life, He can bring death to the living and living to the death. Everything is possible from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who hope and believe, it happens happens for them. And if it doesn't happen, then it is never lost. The supplication, we have been rewarded for certain things. So we should always believe, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the place in the heaven, in the gardens, which will be ever and everlasting, never ending. So then he asked that, he said to his dad, his father, which was his uncle, he said, I will ask my Lord for forgiveness. Now just understand, this is something technical to understand. And he said, and forgive my father, indeed he was one of those who went astray. So when a person's parents are alive and they are not into Islam, we should always make supplication and dua for them, for those who are not in Islam. And for those who are in Islam, we should make dua that, oh Allah, keep them in the righteous path and give them life in Islam, death in Iman. Same thing we can ask for them, for the non-believing parents who are alive, or who we can make this dua. My Lord, for the person whose parents are not Muslim, that my Lord give life to my parents in Islam and bring them into the Islam, open their heart for the Islam and have mercy upon them, take care of them, all the things we are commanded to do, except not to follow them in the worship act, because that is not the righteous way except the Islam. So Ibrahim alayhi salam was something technical of the Islamic fiqh. He promised his father that I will supplicate to my Lord that he should forgive you. But when he made the dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stopped him and commanded him not to do this. This will come in some other place, we'll read it. So that as a Muslim, we are supposed to make supplication for our living parents. As a Muslim, we cannot make dua for the deceased parent, because their book of deeds is closed now. They decided not to believe in God, and they will be having the consequences of that. But for our Muslim parents, we can ask for forgiveness and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy. Again, it is a scholarly interpretation of this thing. If a person feel very much devoted and loved, I had one American girl, she actually cried a lot of time, came to my office. She said, I miss my mom. Her father was dying with the pancreatic cancer. Her mother died, and she was very much distressed. She would sit for hours and cry in my office, and I had to listen to her. And her mother, she said, Dr. Farooqui, can I pray for my mom? And I said, you can ask for God to have mercy for you and mercy on her, but not, you can ask for that she should be, whatever way we are told is that we are restricted. So I'm not sure what is the answer, but as I understand from this scholar interpretation, that we cannot ask for forgiveness who did not believe in God. But this story is different for Christian and Jews. If they died on Christianity and Judaism, it is believed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy upon them if they lived righteously. This is my interpretation after living in America for so long, that Quran says, Surah Maida, we will come to read, that Jesus will be asked, did you ask these people to worship you? And he and his mother, and he will say, Lord, I never asked them and never wanted them to do that, and you were caretaking them when I was not there. So he will ask, وَإِن تُعَذِّبْهُمْ وَتَغْفِرْهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ. Lord, you forgive them or punish them, they are your slaves or they are your creations. They did it out of their devotion and love, that they call me your son, which I am not, or nobody is. So Muslim scholar interpret that Allah will be merciful for them. So for the Christian, I think believing that Jesus, because Jews don't believe in Jesus. So this is the conversation mentioned in Quran about Jesus. They will be given some status of not being in the hell. This is what we know for best. So he said, وَأَغْفِرْ لِأَبِيهِ إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الضَّالِينَ وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. Then he said, and do not put me in disgrace on the day when we will be raised. Because Prophet Muhammad, when he prayed for one hypocrite, and Allah commanded him, do not ever stand on their grave nor ever ask for forgiveness. And we will come to that, we'll discuss that. So this is something very, very moving and very emotional issue, because everybody loves their parents. Who does not? So when their wealth will not benefit them, except that to who came to Allah with a sound heart. Means qalbin salim. Salim means the one who is in salam, who is in peace, who is free of all ill and all idol worshipping, purely devoted to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And paradise will be brought near to them. And then those who are disbeliever, they will be in the hellfire, will be there for that uncovered, for the perverse. So they will be able to see the hell, which he has mentioned in many times. Again, this address is now done to the Meccan who do not believe. They were asking for the hell to be, or the judgment to be brought to them. Let's continue to listen next verses.
وقيل لهم أين ما كنتم تعبدون
And it will be said to them, where is that which you used to worship
من دون الله هل ينصرونكم أو ينتصرون
beside Allah? Can they help you or help themselves?
فكبكبوا فيها هم والغاوون
So they, their false gods, will be thrown on their faces into it, they and the erring people,
وجنود إبليس أجمعون
and the entire army of Iblis, Satan, all together.
قالوا وهم فيها يختصمون
They will say when they will be quarreling there with each other,
تالله إن كنا لفي ضلال مبين
by Allah, we were in open error,
إذ نسويكم برب العالمين
when we used to equate you with the Lord of the worlds.
وما أضلنا إلا المجرمون
And it is only the sinners who misguided us.
فما لنا من شافعين
Now we have neither any intercessors,
ولا صديق حميم
nor any true friend.
فلو أن لنا كرة فنكون من المؤمنين
Would that we had a chance to return whereby we may join the believers.
إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين
Surely, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers.
وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم
And indeed your Lord is the mighty, the merciful.
So we hear that what will happen to those disbelievers, how they will be punished and how they will be quarreling, and the Satan and his followers all will be thrown into the hellfire, and they will ask for second chance to come back to the life, and so that they will not go astray, because we need to be very, very careful in matter of faith. The one thing which, if you would understand all this time what we hear in Islam, there's only one thing which is incompromisable, is monotheistic worshipping of Allah and Allah alone. Nobody can be worshipped. Prophet Muhammad is loved, is part of the prayer, but is not the source or the object or subject of worship. This is something some people get a little extra devotional and they start saying things which were not supposed to be. That Prophet Muhammad is none but the messenger of God, and he was a human. Allah created him. He was a moral example for us to follow, a life of example of Quran that we should live by. We should love him, we should follow him and devote ourselves to his teaching, but we do not worship him. And many Christians, when I speak to them, they think that Prophet Muhammad for us is like a Jesus to them. I tell them, no, not at all. We do not worship Muhammad, neither we believe he's a son of God, nor we believe that he has any influence or power over God. He is a messenger of God who would supplicate, and Allah never let go the prayer and the supplication of prophets wasted or unanswered. So this is what we think. He is an intermediary between us and Allah, but he is not at all to be worshipped. And if any Muslim who does that, that person is a disbeliever, is doing a greatest crime. So we need to be understanding worship is alone for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can use as a source, as a resource, as a intermediary, as a wasila, the connection, but we cannot worship Prophet Muhammad or anybody other than Allah as part of worship. Next discussion is coming about the Nuh alayhi salam, Prophet Noah, and let's listen to this conversation. Same thing, his nation and his people. Now something Quran has a very beautiful way of talking. Like you see, even though the nation of Prophet Noah or other prophets did not believe in them, but Quran addressed to them as their brothers, akhuhum. So this is something which is very funny to know, even though you don't believe in me, but you're still my brother. This is what the Islam is. Even a person who is not believer is a brother in humanity. This is what is the message here. There are two types of relation between Muslim and a non-Muslim. One is a brother in Islam, the other one is a brother in humanity, because all human belong to Adam, and Adam come from clay, dust, and dust is what is our origin. So this is something very beautiful to understand. Islam does not discriminate on a person. There is no relation of negativity, hate, or enmity. there is only two relation. Whether we meet a person in Islam as a Muslim brother in Islam, or we meet a person as a brother in humanity. So let's listen to this discussion, because what appealed to me, struck me when I was listening to this, that is قَالَ لَهُمْ أُخُوهُمْ نُوحٌ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ, when the brother said to them, no, that to his brother, why do you not fear Allah? So he was treating, or he was addressing the brother, yet they thought that he was enemy, and they threatened him that they will beat you, you are crazy. What are their typical thing? You are a liar, you are possessed, you are demonically possessed, or you are a magician, or you are a liar. And all these things they would call to the prophets, because they were asking them not to worship these God you have created with your own hand, who have no power on their own self. They are not living, they are man-made, handcrafted structures, and people are worshipping them. What a silly human behavior. Yet they can be as genius to put a man on the moon and put a spaceship into Mars, and then go to the depth of the ocean and do the genetic engineering and save mankind, so and so forth. Yet for the worship, they make a God of their own, rather than believing that God created them. Let's listen to this.
كذبت قوم نوح المرسلين
The people of Nuh rejected the messengers.
إذ قال لهم أخوهم نوح ألا تتقون
When their brother Nuh said to them, do you not fear Allah?
إني لكم رسول أمين
I am an honest messenger for you.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون
So, fear Allah and obey me.
وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين
I do not claim from you any reward for it. My reward is with none but with the Lord of the worlds.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون
So, fear Allah and obey me.
قالوا أنؤمن لك واتبعك الأرذلون
They said, shall we believe in you while you are followed by the lowest people?
قال وما علمي بما كانوا يعملون
He said, I do not know about what they do.
إن حسابهم إلا على ربي لو تشعرون
Their account is with none but with my Lord, if you have sense.
وما أنا بطارد المؤمنين
And I am not the one who would drive the believers away.
إن أنا إلا نذير مبين
I am no more than a plain warner.
قالوا لئن
So we see that these people who were rich and affluent, they would always say that your followers are poor and destitute and needy, and we do not match with them. And then he is telling them, I do not have control over their sources of income or their livelihood. But they said, no, if you do not bring rich people to join you, we will not follow you. This is how the arrogance of always the rich people do. Not that the poor are always good people, but the thing is, wealth and power corrupt the mankind.
إن أنا إلا نذير مبين
I am no more than a plain warner.
قالوا لئن لم تنته يا نوح لتكونن من المرجومين
They said, should you not stop, O Nuh? You will surely be stoned.
قال رب إن قومي كذبون
He said, my Lord, my people have rejected me.
فافتح بيني وبينهم فتحا ونجني ومن معي من المؤمنين
So judge between me and them with an open verdict, and save me and all the believers who are with me.
فأنجيناه ومن معه في الفلك المشحون
So we saved him and those with him in the ark that was fully occupied.
ثم أغرقنا بعد الباقين
Then we drowned, after that, all the remaining.
إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين
Surely, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers.
وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم
And indeed your Lord is the mighty, the very merciful.
كذب
This is very interesting. You'll see after each prophet's story mentioning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ عَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ, and indeed your Lord is mighty and very merciful. Now we see that they call prophet all the names, and after that they find that he's not accepting their discourse. So what they threaten him, that will stone you to death. And then what happened? The story is, 950 years of preaching of Noah alayhi salam. After that many months and years of teaching, he only, according to the narration, is that 80 or some people believed in him, rest of them denied him. At the end, God saved only these 80 and destroyed all of them. So this is what we also understand. We should be aware that even though a Muslim might be minority, of believers will be in minority, but do not think that we will be lost. We will never be lost. We will always be preserved and saved. The other next story is coming about the people of Ad and about the messenger, and then Samud. All these things, we will listen to that, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered them and how they were, and after that they denied the God's favor upon them. We should always be watchful of that.
كذبت عاد المرسلين
There, people of Ad rejected the messengers.
إذ قال لهم أخوهم هود ألا تتقون
When their brother had said to them, "Do you not fear Allah?
إني لكم رسول أمين
I am an honest messenger for you.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون
So fear Allah and obey me.
وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين
I do not claim from you any reward for it. My reward is with none but with the Lord of the worlds.
أتبنون بكل ريع آية تعبثون
Do you erect on every height a monument, having no sound purpose,
وتتخذون مصانع لعلكم تخلدون
and take the objects of architecture as if you are going to live forever?
وإذا بطشتم بطشتم جبارين
And when you seize someone, you seize as tyrants.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون
So fear Allah and obey me.
واتقوا الذي أمدكم بما تعلمون
And fear the one who has supported you with what you know.
أمدكم بأنعام وبنين
He has supported you with cattle and sons,
وجنات وعيون
and with gardens and springs.
إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم عظيم
In fact, I fear for you the punishment of a horrible day.
قال
This is something about the people of Hud alayhi salam. Prophet names was Hud, and people were, a nation was called Ad, and they were very mighty and strong, and some of their attributes are mentioned. They were so powerful, and they carved the stones and make the structures in there, which we see the Petra and all those places. They carved the mountains, and this has been mentioned that they just made it for no purpose, but they just wanted to show their might and power. They were also another thing that when they seized somebody, they would attack somebody, they were very harsh. Those people who do not obey them, so they were very mighty and powerful. It has been mentioned that they were so strong and healthy that they were very tall and giant people, yet when they would die, they just die. They would not get sick. There was no sickness in them, and they were given a lot of springs and gardens, and they were given a lot of blessings, and they were just arrogant, and they still denied the Prophet. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does test people, by providing and by depriving. So these were the people, Allah gave them might and power and everything, and then asked them to worship none but Allah, and they denied it. So let's see what their conversation further goes.
قالوا سواء علينا أوعظت أم لم تكن من الواعظين
They said, "It is all equal for us, whether you give us advice or you do not become one of the advisors.
إن هذا إلا خلق الأولين
This is nothing but the practice of the ancient,
وما نحن بمعذبين
and we are not going to be punished."
فكذبوه فأهلكناهم إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين
Thus they rejected him, so we destroyed them. Surely, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers.
وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم
And indeed your Lord is the mighty, the merciful.
كذب
So we hear that same verse, وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Prophet came, Prophet warned them. God gave these nations might and power and health and wealth and children and sustenance. What is all what we get? Since we are born, we were told to make living, to get educated, to have a better quality of life, achieve a goal. We set a goal. At the end of the day, what we see? We see there's nothing left and everlasting. Our own existence is just for a time, and this is where the success is, that we succeed in the life hereafter, not in this world. There were some Muslims who studied in Germany. They thought that Muslims are a threat to their government or whatnot. So actually, when the intelligence agency studied about them, they came to this conclusion, these people talk about the life before birth and after death. They have no purpose of doing anything in the world. They just try to go to people to have them make believe that there is God and Muhammad is a messenger of God. So they are no threat to our government. So people talk about Muslims live for hereafter, not for here. Here we are living so that enough to sustain and provide and achieve and give the mankind, not take from the mankind. And this is something to be understood, that no matter whether we are wealthy, we are good looking, we are powerful, we are mighty, we have children, we have all the worldly possession, yet if we did not believe in Allah and we died without shahada, we will be the biggest loser. And then inna rabbaka lahu al-aziz al-hakim. After ending of the story of the people of Prophet Hud, the nation of Ad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying inna rabbaka lahu al-aziz al-hakim. Now we are going to talk about Prophet Saleh and his nation Thamud. So Qawm Thamud and their prophet was Saleh, with the story of camel, which we have heard many times. Again, it's a repetition, but let's listen to this.
كذبت ثمود المرسلين.
There, people of Thamud rejected the messengers.
إذ قال لهم أخوهم صالح ألا تتقون.
When their brother Saleh said to them, do you not fear Allah?
إني لكم رسول أمين.
I am an honest messenger for you.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون.
So, fear Allah and obey me.
وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين.
I do not claim from you any reward for it. My reward is with none but with the Lord of the worlds.
Few things you see, the repetition of same thing. Inni rasulun is qala lahum akhuhum salihun. Salihun Allah tattaqun. Salih is the brother of the nation. So Prophet is a brother to caring for them. Inni lakum rasulun amin. I am a trustworthy messenger for you. Then fattaqullaha wa atiyun. Do nothing. Just have taqwa, consciousness with Allah, and obey me. And then وَمَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرٍ مِنْ أَجْرٍ. And I do not ask you for any return or payment. Often the priests who go out and preach people, they take money and keep it to themselves. This is one of the corruption happened in the Christianity and other faith, that the priest kept the money, and this money is used to influence the power, and they become the owner of the wealth. And this is where many churches were lost, because the priest was mishandling the funds at times. And in ajriya illa ala rabbil alameen, the good and righteous messengers or the preachers or the prophets, they never ask for any return or favor in return of bringing them to Islam. And anytime when we go to the places where people ask for paying something for them, it means that person is fraud. Do not go with those who ask for money for charity. Islam is not the one which take people's money and then feed the individuals. When you want to give somebody out of your devotion and love and care, and you think that person is needy, you can do it. But we are not required by the preacher to be given money to them.
أتتركون فيما هاهنا آمنين.
Will you be left secure in whatever is here?
في جنات وعيون.
In gardens and springs.
وزروع ونخل طلعها هضيم.
And in farms and date palms, the spathes of which are interwoven.
وتنحتون من الجبال بيوتا فارهين.
You hew out houses from the hills with pride.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون.
So fear Allah and obey me.
ولا تطيعوا أمر المسرفين.
And do not obey the order of the transgressors.
الذين يفسدون في الأرض ولا يصلحون.
Who make mischief on the land and who do not set things right.
قالوا إنما أنت من المسحرين.
They said, you are merely one of those bewitched.
ما أنت إلا بشر مثلنا فأت بآية إن كنت من الصادقين.
You are nothing but a human like us. So, bring a sign if you are one of the truthful.
قال هذه ناقة لها شرب ولكم شرب يوم معلوم.
He said, this is a she-camel. She has a share of water, and you have a share of water on a specified day.
ولا تمسوها بسوء فيأخذكم عذاب يوم عظيم.
So do not touch her with evil intent, lest you should be seized by a painful punishment.
فعقروها فأصبحوا نادمين.
But they killed her, then they became remorseful.
فأخذهم العذاب إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين.
And the punishment seized them. Surely, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers.
وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم.
And indeed your Lord is the mighty, the merciful.
كذبت.
So we heard about the people of Saleh, that the camel miracle they demanded when the miracle was given. She was a huge she-camel, and she would drink one day water, and 6 days the people were allowed. Even though demanded the miracle, when she came across, they become kind of again arrogant, and they thought that this is a burden for them, and then they killed her. When they killed her, then their punishment came from God to seize them, and they were destroyed. And this is again now the next story is about people of Lot and Lut alayhi salam. Listen to this, please.
كذبت قوم لوط المرسلين.
The people of Lot rejected the messengers.
إذ قال لهم أخوهم لوط ألا تتقون.
When their brother Lot said to them, do you not fear Allah?
إني لكم رسول أمين.
I am an honest messenger for you.
فاتقوا الله وأطيعون.
So fear Allah and obey me.
وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين.
I do not claim from you any reward for it. My reward is with none but with the Lord of the worlds.
أتأتون الذكران من العالمين.
Do you go to the males for having sex out of the whole universe?
وتذرون ما خلق لكم ربكم من أزواجكم بل أنتم قوم عادون.
And leave your wives whom your Lord has created for you. Indeed, you are a people who cross all limits.
قالوا لئن لم تنته يا لوط لتكونن من المخرجين.
They said, if you do not stop, O Lot, you shall be included among the outcast.
قال إني لعملكم من القالين.
He said, indeed, I am annoyed with your act.
رب نجني وأهلي مما يعملون.
My Lord, save me and my family from what they do.
فنجيناه وأهله أجمعين.
So we saved him and his family, all of them,
إلا عجوزا في الغابرين.
except an old woman among those who remain behind.
This is very important. I will stop here. The verse number 171. إِلَّا عَجُوزًا فِي الْغَابِرِينَ. This is mention about the wife of Prophet Lot. She was sympathetic, not that she was involved with them, but she was sympathetic to their act of life. Homosexuality is not approved in Islam, and it is what punishment of Allah has given to them. If somebody has a desire of being that way, then Islam teaches them to abstain from this action and to not be public about it, because a person who could be transgender or to be homosexual or straight, whichever, worship and believing Allah is one part, and acting in the life in this way, Islam doesn't approve it. Allah will judge them if they create mischief and they seek such way to gratify their desire. And this is where we need to know pleasure versus happiness. And Allah says that Allah created man and woman for each other as spouses, and this is one of the greatest sin. Now we can see that the prophet wife of a prophet and his family. So Allah says we saved all of them except the woman who had ajuza, means old woman. She was elderly in her age. Even then she was just sympathetic. So we need to be very careful when we support a wrongdoer. Silence is actually a agreement to the sin, and we have to be very careful about it. One can lose or get out of faith and get the wrath of Allah if a person sympathize with those who are sinner. Just simply says, we don't approve it, you do it. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. To you is your way, for us is our way of life. We have to be very straight about it. There are certain things which is not approved, and this is one of those things.
Then we destroyed the others. And subjected them to a terrible rain. So evil was the rain of those who were warned. Surely, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers. And indeed your Lord is the mighty, the merciful.
Now we also should remember that Lut alayhi salam's wife was also by relation Lut alayhi salam was the cousin, the nephew of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He believed along with the wife of Ibrahim, Sarah, and they left Ur and they settled down here. Prophet Abraham was guiding him and supporting him. So we understand that she came from a family with the prophet husband. A husband who is prophet is still, because she didn't believe it, so she is not saved by the punishment of God. Faith in Islam is personal, individual, with collective practices. So we need to understand this is very important. A person, because a person is a prophet, his own wife, he was preaching people, his own wife was not saved just because she did not practice. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ending this, that she was among those who got the punishment of God. So we have to be very careful. Islam, we know that the Prophet uncle Abu Lahab was his real uncle, blood uncle, and he did not believe in God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished him. So there is no blood relation which goes ahead unless the faith is in there. And now the nation of Shu'aib, which is the people of the bushes, which is Aika means jungle or bushes. So this is a story about these people, and they were a cheater in measure and scale. There are two types of cheating: measurement and weighing scale, and then lying to people. And Muslims do this thing today. This sin is very common among Muslims, and I would say without any reservation, I do not see in America people do this kind of cheating, that they're measuring less in a scale or cheating in the measurement. Islam says give them the full measure, little more. Do not do less. This is very important, because Allah gave the risk and sustenance and increase it. So we should be very careful about offering generosity.
The people of Acre rejected the messengers. When Shu'aib said to them, do you not fear Allah? I am an honest messenger for you. So fear Allah and obey me. And I do not claim from you any reward for it. My reward is with none but with the Lord of the worlds. Give full measure, and do not be among those who bring loss to others. Weigh with an even balance. And do not make people short of their things, and do not spread disorder in the land as mischief makers. And be fearful of the one who created you and the former generations. They said, you are but one of the bewitched men. You are no more than a human like us, and in fact we consider you to be one of the liars. So cause a piece from the sky to fall down upon us, if you are one of the truthful. He said, My Lord knows well what you do.
فكذبوه فأخذهم عذاب يوم الظلة إنه كان عذاب يوم عظيم.
Thus they rejected him, so they were seized by the torment of the day of canopy. Indeed it was the punishment of a terrible day.
إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين.
Surely, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers.
وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم.
And indeed your Lord is the mighty, the merciful.
وإنه لتنزيل رب العالمين.
This Quran is the revelation of the Lord of the worlds.
نزل به الروح الأمين.
The trusted spirit has brought it down
على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين.
upon your heart, so that you become one of the warners.
بلسان عربي مبين.
In plain Arabic language.
وإنه لفي زبر الأولين.
And of course, it is mentioned in the scriptures of the former people.
أولم يكن لهم آية أن يعلمه علماء بني إسرائيل.
Is it not a proof for them that the knowledgeable of the children of Israel recognize him, the prophet?
ولو نزلناه على بعض الأعجمين.
Even if we had revealed it to a non-Arab,
فقرأه عليهم ما كانوا به مؤمنين.
and he had recited it to them, they would not have believed in it.
كذلك سلكناه في قلوب المجرمين.
This is how we have made it pass through the hearts of the sinners.
لا يؤمنون به حتى يروا العذاب الأليم.
They will not believe in it until they will see the painful punishment.
Verse number 197 till the end of the chapter, this was whole portion was revealed in Medina. So we know that the conversation is changing from those prior stories to the people of Awalam yakun lahum ayatun an yu'allimahu ulama'u bani Israel. Now the scholars of children of Israel are being mentioned and whatever was told to them about their faith. So listen to this.
فيأتيهم بغتة وهم لا يشعرون.
And it will come to them suddenly while they will not be anticipating it.
فيقولوا هل نحن منظرون.
And then they will say, Is it possible that we are given some respite?
أفبعذابنا يستعجلون.
Is it then our punishment that they are trying to hasten up?
أفرأيت إن متعناهم سنين.
So tell me, if we give them enjoyment for years,
ثم جاءهم ما كانوا يوعدون.
then comes to them what they are warned of.
ما أغنى عنهم ما كانوا يمتعون.
What help can they receive from the comforts they were given to enjoy?
وما أهلكنا من قرية إلا لها منذرون.
We did not destroy any town unless it has had warners,
ذكرى وما كنا ظالمين.
to give advice, and we have never been unjust.
وما تنزلت به الشياطين.
And this Quran is not brought down by devils,
وما ينبغي لهم وما يستطيعون.
it neither suits them, nor are they able to do this.
إنهم عن السمع لمعزولون.
In fact, they are kept far away from hearing it at the time of revelation.
فلا تدع مع الله إلها آخر فتكون من المعذبين.
So do not invoke any other God along with Allah, otherwise you will be among those who are to be punished.
We also should know that verse number 208, Allah says, وَمَا أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا لَهَا مُنذِرُونَ. We have not destroyed any town or nation unless it had a warner. So today, there's no prophet, there's no more messenger. We Muslims are the warner and the delivering of the messenger and the message of Allah. We are not living in the world for the pleasure and the lust and the greed. We are here to convey the message to the mankind, to be the salvation of the mankind. Only one faith, one religion in the world who claims to be the owner of humanity is Islam. Because Islam says from Adam till the last human born belongs to Islam. who will believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. History belonged to Islam. Ancient men belong to Islam because Adam and Noah and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Jesus and Ishmael and Muhammad and all these prophets belong to Islam. So Islam have a claim on them. Jew says that they were Jew. They were never Jew because the Jew were never existed. They say they were Christian. If they think that Jesus is God, then they were not God. That Christianity doesn't own them. Islam is the only faith which says there are two relations of a person to human. One is from the Adam and the other one is to the faith. And this is why Islam claims to the history of humanity. It is a very important thing if you could understand. Only a few more verses left. Be patient with me.
وأنذر عشيرتك الأقربين
And warn the nearest people of your clan.
واخفض جناحك لمن اتبعك من المؤمنين
And be kind with humbleness to the believers who followed you.
فإن عصوك فقل إني بريء مما تعملون.
So if they disobey you, then say, I disown what you do.
One thing also to be understood, verse number 216, فَإِنْ عَصَوْكَ فَقُلْ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ, and the one 215, وَاخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So spread your wing of mercy to the people who believe with you, who are with you, who are part of you, of a faith, no matter how rich, poor, healthy, unhealthy, or good or bad they are. You need to have a prophet is commanded in this verse, and he is merciful to us, not while he was alive. Now when he has passed away, our deeds are presented to him every Thursday before they are given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if he sees the good deed, he thank Allah. If he see our sinful act, he asks Allah for forgiveness for us. And similarly, Allah says, and this they tell to them that if you do sin, I have nothing to do with it. I disown you for what you disbelieve. This is the one thing. Believing in Allah and sinning is a forgivable act. If not believing in Allah and doing righteous deed is not acceptable act by Allah. It is a very important thing to understand. Faith is the most important thing of a human.
وتوكل على العزيز الرحيم.
And place your trust in the mighty, the merciful,
الذي يراك حين تقوم.
who sees you when you stand in prayer
وتقلبك في الساجدين.
and sees.
Allah is watching, oh beloved Muhammad, when you are standing and when you are in prostration. And same thing for his followers and his believer. When we stand, when we sit, when we lie down on our side and we pray, Allah is watching us all the time. This is a beautiful thing, that we are under the constant watch of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not need eyes to watch. Allah does not need ears to hear. Allah does not need tongue to speak. Allah has given this power to the mankind that look at with your eyes, listen with your ears, and act with your body and speak with your tongue. When you become so much righteous that I become your ears and eyes and tongue and hands and feet, where you walk and you do and you speak and you do all the act according to my like, and you become a part where I run your body and your existence.
وتقلبك في الساجدين.
And sees your movement among those who prostrate themselves.
إنه هو السميع العليم.
Surely he is the all-hearing, the all-knowing.
هل أنبئكم على من تنزل الشياطين.
Shall I tell you on whom the devils descend?
تنزل على كل أفاك أثيم.
They descend on every sinful liar.
يلقون السمع وأكثرهم كاذبون.
They give ear to hear, secretly, and most of them tell lies.
والشعراء يتبعهم الغاوون.
As for the poets, they are followed by the straying people.
ألم تر أنهم في كل واد يهيمون.
Did you not see that they wander in every valley?
وأنهم يقولون ما لا يفعلون.
And that they say what they do not?
إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وذكروا الله كثيرا وانتصروا من بعد ما ظلموا وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.
Except those who believe and do righteous deeds and remember Allah very much, and defend themselves after they are wronged. And the wrongdoers will soon know to which place they are going to return.
So you see the last verses, وَالشُّعَرَاء يَتَّبِعْهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. It is mentioned as for the poets, they are followed by their straying people. This poetry, sometimes people exaggerate and say things which are not part of the truth, and we should be aware of that. Poetry often exaggerate the emotions and feeling, because they used to taunt Prophet Muhammad that he's a poet, and Prophet never did the poetry. And this is why it is a reply for their taunt and their insult to Prophet. So this is why it is named Surah Shu'ara, the poets chapter. But in this we heard again the repetition of all the people before which were mentioned in the Quran are the nations which were of significance in the Middle Eastern area, which was aware of the people of Quraysh, because this was discussion is done among the Quraysh. With this I will stop today, and if you have any questions please ask. Otherwise, inshallah, we will meet next Sunday, and if you have any comment, any suggestion, please feel free to ask, inshallah. There's a comment, I find it interesting that different traditions have different ideas of what worship is in Islam, what is exactly worship, and what makes something an idol. Like Hindus seems to worship in any way in which they give attention and focus to. If there is a definition of worship, then that wouldn't have to worship or our family job the word. Christian seems to worship things that they praise, but we praise people as well is that worship. So in Islam, is worship just performing the ritual of the prayer? I am a bit confused. Meaning in Islam, the worship is having the ritual with a specific intention. Hope that makes sense. So worship involves dependency upon. Okay, the question is a little complex. Do you want me to answer now, or shall we